Okay, guys, today what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about the Byronic hero, all right, or the Gothic hero in literature. So this is a form of characterization that people who are in the Romantic period, or what we call the Gothic period, that they would use to build characters. And so there's something that we will see in the characterization of characters that come from this period. Now, reason that we use the word Byronic, all right, is because if you remember in our documentary, right, we talked about how Lord Byron and Percy Shelley and Mary Shelley and Mary's sister were all hanging out right at this mansion over a summer, and that's when Frankenstein was created. Well, Byron and Percy, Mary Shelley's husband, were considered the two greatest poets of the Romantic period. And Byron is known for creating this certain type of character that Mary Shelley follows the outline pretty clearly in Frankenstein, all right? Lord Byron, as you guys know, he was a good-looking guy. He was known for being a philanderer, which means that he messed around with lots of different ladies. Percy Shelley was kind of like that too, all right? We talk about this great love that he and Mary shared, but their marriage was pretty contentious because Percy cheated on her quite often in between the time that they were married and in the time that between the time that they were married and the time that he died. And this created a lot of tension in their relationship. But that's an aside. The Byronic hero is known by about 9 different things we can see in them. One, they're a wanderer. That means they go from place to place to place. They're never settled. The second is that they shun the rules of society. So they're kind of outliers to society. They sit on the edge of society. They're melancholic. What does melancholic mean? When we say melancholic, what does that mean?
Sad.
Who said? What did you say, Matt? You say somebody said something?
Sad.
Sad. All right. Melancholic is this kind of sadness, angsty. Do you know what I mean by angst? All right. You know, we often speak of teenagers as being angst-ridden. All right. There's just this. You know, Napoleon Dynamite. You guys ever remember Napoleon? All right. So there's just this melancholic kind of sadness, whininess about them. Whiny might be a little bit much. The Gothic hero is not always a man. Sometimes it's a woman. Sometimes it's something else. All right. A Gothic hero or a Byronic hero has a fragmentation of the psyche. And when I say fragmentation of the psyche, I mean that they are psychologically broken people. They might be a little crazy, but there is a fatal character flaw that exists within them that drives them to destruction. All right, that's what we mean by this fragmentation of the psyche. There's an interruption of the maturation process. Have you ever heard maybe your parents say that person just never grew up? All right. Okay. So there's something that has stilted their emotional development that's kept them stuck in the same place. All right. So an interruption of the maturation process. Gothic literature and Gothic heroes, Byronic heroes, they travel to exotic locations. Though most Romantic literature was written by English people, rarely are the locations set in England. Oftentimes they are set in all sorts of different exotic locations. 8, pre-adolescent love based on brother-sister relationship model. That's a nice way to say that there's incestuous undertones, all right? So, and you see this at work in these novels, that there's something kind of creepy at work with some of their relationships that we see, all right? And finally, they're the outsider. They're an outsider as an anti-hero. What is an anti-hero? Anybody know?
Somebody who ain't the hero?
What's that? Don't, just because I say what's that, it really means that I can't hear. All right? I'm deaf. What did you say? Say it again, Maylee, real loud.
A bad guy.
They're heroic, right? But they're not heroic always in a good way. So they're an anti-hero. So this is the characteristics of a Byronic hero. These are some. There's some that we. There was a movie that I went and saw this weekend that had a Byronic Gothic hero in it. So we see him in movies today. I went and saw The Joker. All right. The Joker is an anti-hero. All right. He's a broken individual with a fragmented psyche. There's some kind of incestuous tone that was going on between he and his mother. Now, he didn't travel to exotic locations, but there was definitely an interruption in the maturation process. He was stuck. There was something not quite right with him. Was he melancholic? Absolutely he was. There was a sadness about him. He sat outside of society's rules and he begins to shun them. And he's a wanderer. He's going from place to place to place in terms of his job, in terms of his desires, all right? So even heroes that we see today, or even characters that we see in today, still we see Gothic heroes or Byronic heroes. It's kind of interesting. I was thinking about the Joker when I was seeing it, because like he does horrible things, right? Horrible things. And if you were to ask me, just kind of like, well, I'm pretty much a pacifist, all right? I'm not about the use of violence, but art is so crazy, right? Because you end up rooting for people that you would never root for, right? And so, I found myself sympathizing and feeling for the Joker and rooting for him in some ways. It was kind of creepy. Now let's think.
It was psycho.
Huh?
Like, it was crazy.
Yeah, it was a crazy movie. But it was a Gothic movie. It fell inside the Gothic tradition, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, what Gothic the tradition looks like. But he was a Byronic hero. Another thing that we see sometimes with Byronic heroes, all right, is that we have, they're usually contrasted with a character who is the opposite of them, that they're very close to. So how many of you guys got to chapter 3? Did any of you guys finish chapter 3? All right. So who is Victor's best friend?
Wait.
In the book, who is Victor's best friend? Childhood friend, continues to be his best friend.
Oh, it's
Starts with C.
Carve.
Serval.
Yeah.
All right. So what we're going to see is Victor is dark and brooding. He exists outside the lines. But Serval is very much a traditional character, right? He's a flat character in the sense that he does not grow or show, or he doesn't change. But he's very much inside the rules of society, and he serves as a contrast to the character of Victor. In the book, Frankenstein, I can identify 3 characters that are Gothic heroes, that are Byronic heroes, all right? And you'll see those as we go forward. But we were introduced to one at the very beginning, and so I'm going to use him as an example to kind of pull it out of how we see it in the text. And that hero, the first one that we see in this, is Robert Walton, the captain of the ship that rescues Victor Frankenstein. So we see one, all right, Robert's a wanderer, right?
Is he gay, or is he just lonely?
We'll talk about that in a second, all right? But Emma, way to pick up on one of the conventions of Gothic literature, all right? So,
I was thinking too.
which we'll talk a little bit later, all right?
I don't
So-
know if it was a thing at the time. So
Yes. If you can finish this would be great. So he's a wanderer. He goes, we see him, he begins his journey in London, but we never see him there. We are introduced to him when he's in Russia. He goes and then spends time as a whale fisherman traveling all over the seas, right? And then we see him in the Arctic, so he's traveling all over the place. He shuns the rules of society. Look on page 4 of your text, all right? Second paragraph, really the last sentence says, he's talking about how he had studied these books about the Arctic from his uncle's library day and night. And he says this, these volumes were my study day and night, and my familiarity with them increased that regret which I had felt as a child on learning that my father's dying injunction had forbidden my uncle to allow me to embark on a seafaring life. So what was an injunction is a stop. You know, it's like saying stop. All right, I'm putting an end to this. So this was his father's dying injunction, his dying wish. And what was his dying wish for Robert?
Go to that college.
He'd go to this college, but what did he not want him to do?
To do anatomy and all that weird body.
Not Victor, Robert. Page 4, second paragraph, last sentence. What is his dying injunction to Robert? Somebody look at it. What is his dying injunction?
He doesn't want him to
Yeah, he doesn't want him to. He doesn't want him to be a sailor. He doesn't want him to be in a seafaring life. What is it that Robert does? He does exactly the opposite, right? So do you think that ignoring your father's dying injunction and wish is shunning the rules of society? Would that be something that we would see? Yeah, absolutely. Especially in that society, all right, in that day and age. Melancholic, second letter, page 6. We see this. So listen to how Victor writes. But I have one want I have never yet been able to satisfy in the absence of the object of which I now feel as a most severe evil. I have no friend, Margaret. When I'm glowing with the enthusiasm of success, there will be none to participate my joy. If I'm assailed by disappointment, no one will endeavor to sustain me in dejection. I shall commit my thoughts to paper, it is true, but that is a poor medium for the communication of feeling. I desire the company of a man who could sympathize with me, whose eyes would reply to mine. You may deem me romantic, my dear sister, but I bitterly feel the want of a friend. I have no one near me, gentle yet courageous, possessed of a cultivated as well as a capricious mind. All right. So do we see in that there's that melancholic, angsty desire for something that they don't have? Absolutely we do. Fragmentation of the psyche, we don't really get into that until later on in the book with this character. An interruption of the maturation process when we know that his father died at an early age, right, and that he lived with his uncle. That was what we saw as his dying injunction to his uncle, the father's dying injunction to his uncle. So something happened there. Travel to exotic locations, we've already seen that. How about this? What did you think about the tone of his writing to his sister?
I like Columbus or something.
Did it seem normal?
No.
It seemed kind of flirty.
Did it? Yeah, because in Gothic literature, you have incestuous undertones that run throughout the literature. All right, so one of the reasons that we have an 1818 version of Frankenstein and an 1831 version is because in the 1818 version, Victor's love interest, Elizabeth, is his adopted sister that has been in their family since they were wee little children, all right?
Aren't they together in this one too?
Oh yeah, but they take a step back. She's just a cousin there.
Oh.
All right, so you see it, all right? So and we see this in the language, don't we? Look at page 8, the last paragraph, all right? Shall I meet you again after having traversed immense seas and returned by the most southern cape of Africa or America? I dare not expect such success, yet I cannot bear to look on the reverse of the picture. Continue for the present to write me by every opportunity. I may receive your letters on some occasions when I need them most to support my spirits. I love you very tenderly. Remember me with affection should you never hear from me again. Your affectionate brother, Robert Walton. Okay, so are you seeing some of the undertones there in the language? All right, so these are all classic examples, right, of the Byronic hero or the Gothic hero. You can turn that off.